Zero Foxtrot does not profess to share or promote the opinions and beliefs expressed by show host or guests. The Stay Zero podcast was created to provide a platform for servicemen and women to share their stories. Due to the nature of this podcast, sensitive topics will arise. Conversations about combat, PTSD, drug use, and other such subjects will occur. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the Stay Zero podcast. I have Aaron Ritter with me today. Aaron has served 28 years in the Navy. He started off in comms, worked his way into EOD, and spent some time with 10th Group.
I did.
Right? And then he got out, spent some time contracting. He is an amputee, but from a motorcycle accident, right?
Harley Davidson.
Yeah. And the host of the LIMB-itless podcast. And are you the CEO or the president? How does of the charity?
Of the
nonprofit?
Of the nonprofit A3G. I am the founder and president.
Awesome. Well, cool, man. It's good to see you again. I actually just saw you about last week, but
we broke bread
for coming in. We did.
Yeah.
We did. That was a good night.
That was a good meal.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Where do you want to start? You want to start with your story? Or you want to start with AG?
We'll kind of do a little bit of an elevator spiel on my story and background so people know where I'm coming from. So when we lead into the A3G initiative, they have a better understanding of
what drove you,
of when that seed was planted, and why I chose to take this on.
Okay.
So
let's kick it off with the Navy. When did you join the Navy? What was that like? What was your mission, your experience? Tell me.
I joined the Navy in 1991 in the good days. It wasn't so old and salty that it was truly uncomfortable, but it was still It was old and salty enough that they were still getting a little bit handsy through training, and you had no liberties. You were a seaman recruit, or apprentice, or a seaman, and you paid the man. You paid your dues. I had the pleasure of attending boot camp in San Diego. We chatted about that a little bit the other night at dinner. Radium and A school in San Diego, and then I took orders on a whim. I say a whim. They still do it in most training applications, but back then, 100%, you chose orders according to your grade point average in your class. And I was fifth in my class. There was 2 sets of orders to Hawaii, which gone. And when it got to me, there was a ship in dry dock in Bremerton, Washington, and I'm from Washington State. So all the instructors said, "Ritter, you're from Washington State. Take those orders. It's sea duty, but that ship is in dry dock for the next 3 to 5 years. You're going to be in dry dock." And I looked at him.
Does that mean you won't deploy? I'm not familiar with dry dock.
It means the ship is not going to sail.
What the hell do you do for 3 to 5 years?
You work on the ship.
That sounds boring as shit,
right?
Okay.
And I literally, the wisdom of an 18-year-old that wanted to see the world, I looked at him and I said, if I wanted to go work in the shipyards, I would have gone up there, enjoyed the union, and made a whole lot more money.
Totally.
And there was on the board, it said NATO, Naples, Italy. Now I wasn't a scholar. I played sports and hunted in high school. I didn't worry about the only concern I had for grades were keeping them high enough that I could play sports and not continuously experience the wooden spoon and wrath of my mother and father.
I took AP classes because to play sports you only had to have a 60, so I could score lower.
We didn't even have AP classes in my high school. Anyhow,
game in the game. There
was NATO, Naples, Italy, and I asked them. I said, "So what's that?" They said, "We have no idea. Don't do it. If you don't know what it is, don't do it." And when I bring up my scholastic history, at that time I had no idea what NATO was. It's North American Treaty Organization, but I didn't know what that was. And I said, "You know what? It's Naples, Italy. I'm doing it." So I was sent to Naples, Italy to work at Allied Forces Southern Europe in Naples. I worked for Admiral Borda, and I don't know if you're familiar with Admiral Borda. He was an enlisted man that became a Mustang, so he commissioned. He was a 4-star admiral, and he was on track to be the first 5th star since World War II.
Wow.
It's a whole conspiracy theory. They say he committed suicide. Most of it was centered around people were saying he was wearing an award that he was not authorized to wear, and that he committed suicide over it. And I worked for the man. I kind of buy into the conspiracy theorists that there's a group of people that did not want a prior enlisted man to be a 5-star admiral, and so weird stuff happened. But anyhow, I had the opportunity to work for Admiral Borda.
Those are two ridiculous things to kill someone for,
right? or to commit suicide for,
or to commit suicide for.
I mean, we could dive down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. It's just it was a cool time to be in the Navy.
I thought maybe you knew the Clintons.
Oh no, nope.
No,
but
that's good.
Yeah, I was a radioman, and when I arrived in Naples, Italy, they retrained me as a courier. One of my collateral duties was being a lifeguard out at the military park. Traveled all over Europe, and then I went on a civilian ship for a year, and from there I got out, and I did reserve time over a 10-year period. I deployed more as a reservist than I did in my first 4 years of active duty.
Okay.
And it was during that reserve time I became a firefighter. And I was working for the city of Walla Walla in Washington State as a firefighter EMT. I was with the union, Local 404, and I was associated with or assigned to EOD Mob Unit 17, which was a reserve EOD unit up in the Puget Sound on Whidbey Island.
As a comm guy?
I reported there as a comm guy.
Okay.
They sent me to basic demo at Nav School EOD. I returned from that, and then they sent me to dive school at the world's best dive school in Panama City, Florida, NDSTC. I went through scuba, returned, and in 2005 they put me in charge of a five-man dive team, and we were shipped to Bahrain to work anti-swimmer operations with the active duty EOD mobile unit that was over in Bahrain at the time.
Wow. What is that? Anti-swimmer? Are you just swimming up underneath people in scuba and pull them down?
No, it's no.
Just sharking people?
No, it's
trying to swim over the border.
The Navy has a couple of mammal programs that they use aquatic mammals to do different operations.
Dolphins, training dolphins.
Maybe, yes. And we swam with the fishes.
That's cool.
And so I was over there doing that, and I had submitted a package to go to EOD school. When I was departing for this deployment, my dad sat down with me, and he was like, "Son," he's like, "what are you going to do? Are you going to be a fireman or are you going to be a sailor? Because you're doing a crap job at either one." So, I was spending... the peer group that I was hired with at the Walla Walla Fire Department, they were accelerating faster than I was because really? I was spending so much time on reserve duty with the Navy, and I was spending a tremendous amount of time on active duty orders with the mobile unit because I loved it so much. And so when I was there, I submitted my package to go to EOD school. It was approved. They pulled me off of that deployment a little bit early. And I went down to Eglin Air Force Base, went through the EOD pipeline at 33 years old, and never looked back.
Nice. What is that training evolution like? Is it a lot of academics? I feel like it would be a lot of blast radiuses and math equations. And
so you would think that, and there is some of that, but it is they have a very rigorous...
physically rigorous?
Mental. Well, there is a lot of that too.
Really?
Yeah.
Got to be able to run fast if you're blowing shit up, right?
Yeah, right. It's you spend a lot of time in the classroom in the practical areas. It's EOD school is a ton of memorization, and it's really focused on your safeties and trying to build that threat assessment and understanding of, okay, here's this particular piece of ordnance. What are the safeties associated with this, and how am I going to safely RSP it or blow it in place? And when do you know how and when to do either one of those actions? You have to memorize stuff about all kinds of ordnance and everything else. And then, you're PTing every single day. And when you screw up, you get punished. And when you do something great, we celebrate by PT. It's like every day you're running and swimming or pushing the deck or doing something.
These are happy push-ups.
That's right. And
not to be confused with the sad ones we did this morning.
that's right. Yeah, I mean, the first phase of EOD school is dive school. If you don't pass dive school, you don't go to EOD school.
Really?
Yeah.
Dive.
Yep.
I guess it's the Navy, huh?
It is the Navy. And then for the Navy students, you're required to go through and pass the nuke section. And then after that, you go through what we call underwater. And that's when you start using all of your mixed gas diving and going through all of the underwater ordnance. And there's, again, that weeds people out physically, because that's where they really ramp up the physical fitness, because the Navy guys are reporting to a Navy only portion of EOD school. And it's like returning back to dive school, where you're just getting it pushed in every single day.
How'd you handle like operating in the water and like being hazed in the water?
Loved it.
Really?
I firmly believe to this day that hazing is something that we need to do.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Go haze yourself.
Absolutely.
I love it. I do.
I think the problem comes in when it's the blind leading the blind, because we did have hazing events that were very useful, and particularly in showing me who wasn't going to quit.
Yeah.
Who was going to put out, because you can all tell the guy who starts, after 5 push-ups. Like, come on, bro. Shut the fuck up. Like, you're milking it. They know you're milking it. I know you're milking it. You just look like a bitch right now. Like, we're going to find out. And that's, I remember one of the first times we did it in my squad when I got to the fleet. We got to run up and down Sugar Cookie. They made us chug a beer each time we got to the top. We were firemen's, it's this big sandy mountain, right? But by the end of it, there was more or less a hierarchy among the new guys of, these dudes are in shape. These dudes can keep their cool while they're getting screamed at. And there was an immediate respect hierarchy that formed, right? And it was useful.
Very.
And then there's like guys shoving beer bottles up dudes' asses at 12 in the morning. Like, I don't think that was appropriate, right? Like, no one did anything like that.
That's
and I'd have lost my shit, right? If somebody had done that, like, I'll fucking shoot a motherfucker for that. That's crazy. But there is a place, right? But it needs to be purposeful and intentional and thought out.
When I reported to Navy dive school, everybody told us that it was nothing like it used to be. And you hear that in every stage of, I mean, in my time,
Mm-hmm.
in the military and the fire department, there's the old timers are always, oh man, you should have seen it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You should have seen it when I came through the pro, right? There's always that.
There is.
But I will tell you this, we checked into Navy dive school. We got through all the admin crap, and they were beating us down in the classroom while we're doing all the admin stuff. The first evolution we had was we had to go out and take the dive screener again. And if you failed the dive screener, you went home. Whether you had passed it to get there,
Really?
first thing we did was take the screener.
Okay.
And if you did the minimum, you were going home. So everybody put out.
Yeah.
Then they put us into ranks, and they're still like, all right, now the rest of our training, we're going to PT until somebody quits. I mean, that was how it started.
It's how most start, I think. Is like day one doesn't end till somebody quits.
Right?
I know one of you's a weak bitch. We're going to find him.
And, I mean,
It sucks to hear that, because I just knew. I was like, oh, I hope there's a weak bitch.
But you know what sucks more is they don't do that anymore.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, you only have a certain amount of time that you can PT somebody. And if you're going to PT somebody has to be doing it with him.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no more extreme beatings anymore. And I think it weakens us to an extent. It's our chief, he was a chief at the time. I don't know if Shane Worley promoted after that, but he was a corpsman. He was built like a fire hydrant and had this big bushy mustache. When you saw him, he reminded me of a walrus, like just this big, beefy bull walrus, right? He was the epitome of dive school for me. When he would, in the mornings, you'd be formed up in your classes out on the grinder, getting ready for PT. And Chief Worley would come out, and you would see him. He could be 200 yards away, and he would look at your class leader, and he would raise his hand and put his pointer finger to the ground. And not just our class, every class out on the grinder, from basic scuba all the way up to first Charlie, like deep sea divers that were going through the program, everybody hit the deck when Worley pointed to the deck. He was that dude. And he had 2 die. So a set of dice.
Okay.
One of them was wooden and it had numbers. It was basically a custom, somebody made him this big wooden die with the 6 sides and all the numbers on it. Then he had this foam one that had been made that had exercises all over it. And he would walk into the classroom and he would chuck that wooden die across the floor and it would roll up with a number. And then he would take that giant foam dice that had exercises all over it and he would zing it through the classroom. I mean, he would throw it right at somebody's head and it would bounce around. And then whatever the numbers were, it was times that by 10, times it by 100, times it by 20, somebody do quick math, whatever it was. And then you just started doing, I mean, desks, chairs would get shoved out of the way and you just immediately started performing exercises. It was incredible. But anyhow, yeah, I went to dive school and then from there, I did that deployment. And I never looked back. I just I went to EOD school and went through that rigorous mental and physical process. It's about a year long. So it starts at dive school. You go through the EOD program, and then when you graduate there, I was an E5. I was IT2 diver Ritter. When I graduated as EOD 1 Ritter. Then you go to jump school from there, and then after that you report to your command, and then you start.
What was your plan with the EOD? What did you want to do? What unit did you want to go work with?
I didn't have a unit that I wanted to go work with. What
was the decision? What was behind the decision to
go to
swap?
EOD school?
Yeah.
From being a fireman?
Or comms guy or whatever?
Well, I hated being comms guy.
Okay.
When I first got in the Navy, I was a radioman, and I worked like shipboard gear and green gear. I understood it. It was fun to tackle. It was fun to communicate. I liked to troubleshoot problems within the system. Mm-hmm. And then technology started advancing and they started bringing in Wi-Fi and computer systems and tying all that together. And now you're talking about all kinds of different things that I just did not have an interest in. I didn't want to do it. And so it was like, well, what path do I have to try to get away from where the direction of comms is going?
Did you consider buds?
I did.
What was your thought process there?
So, at the EOD unit, the reserve unit that I was attached to, there were 2 prior SEALs in that unit, and I sat down with both of them, and their direction for me was, Aaron, you're 33 years old. Physically, you will probably pass buds right now. You have the physical and mental aptitude to do it. It's going to break you and take years off your life. And you're going to retire in your late 40s, early 50s, broken. What are you going to do at that point in time with that skill set at that stage in your life versus going to EOD school, which is, 100% something to be proud of in accomplishing it if you do, but there's skills that I have as an EOD tech that I can apply post-retirement that gives me some different options other than being basically an assaulter, right?
Do the teams have EOD guys or are they all pretty well trained in that too?
No, they have EOD guys that are attached to their platoons. And
even though that's like part of their general curriculum.
Correct.
Okay. They don't specialize.
They don't RSP ordnance.
Okay.
They don't really take apart booby traps and impedances and stuff like that. So same thing with Army Special Forces groups.
Okay.
And they don't use 90% of the time, they don't rely on their own Army EOD techs because Army EOD doesn't have the same pipeline that Navy does. So when we graduate EOD school, we're a full up round. Like when I worked with 10th Group, we'll probably talk about that at some time. When you go to a troop, not everybody is free fall qualified. And the only divers are guys that are a part of a troop that is a dive ODA. Mm-hmm. They're not all of those guys are jump qualified, free fall qualified, dive qualified. Navy EOD techs are. So we're a perfect fit for that mission.
Nice.
And it makes you a little bit different. All the branches do great things. The Marine Corps EOD community, they're incredible at inerting ordnance. And I mean, Marines are Marines. I mean, they're going to conquer the hill, right? But Navy has that. We do have that niche where when you graduate EOD school, you're doing all of it. Yeah. And we're a jack of all trade, master of none. So that's that was my Navy career. I came home from Iraq and had a mechanical malfunction on a Harley Davidson, and it caused me to take my bike off road.
What happened?
My throttle locked wide open.
It locked open.
Yeah, it was a cable throttle on an older Road King, and
you couldn't get it to go down, nope. Slow down.
I had a
runaway bike.
I had a rider in front of me, and we were going into a turn, and there was a car parked on the outside of the turn, and he was on the inside of the turn to my left. So I took the bike off road, and bike hit a curb, swung the back end of it around. It rolled the bike over on its side, and I came off the bike. I was helicoptering through the air.
Jeez.
And helicoptered in between two trees. There was 4 ornamental pears planted in a row, evenly spaced. I went in between tree number 2 and tree number 3, and my leg hit tree number 3, and it ripped it off.
Holy shit.
Ripped it off. We were 100 meters apart. It went out in the street, and I continued on into the field. It was late at night.
You remember about that?
I remember everything. I mean, I don't remember coming off the bike, flying through the air. I remember skidding to a stop, and I was laying on my back, looking up at a beautiful star-filled sky. I mean, I could vividly see every star in the sky. And
feeling lighter?
No, not feel. The only thing I felt was, and the first thought that came to my mind when I came to a skid and stop was, man, that really sucked. For me, it was like a bad parachute landing. I don't know if you've ever fallen out of an airplane, but when you jump static line, or if you do a downwind landing in free fall, you hit hard.
Yeah,
it sucks, and that's what it felt like to me. I was like, well, felt like I just jumped around. That sucked. I don't want to do that again. And I wore Chuck Taylors religiously at that point in my life, and that moment when you take a spill or you're in an incident and you're like going through the checklist of, okay, nothing hurts. Mm-hmm. I'm awake, I'm breathing, I can see, yep. I can feel my fingers, my arms are moving. I don't feel anything, and I'm laying flat on my back, and I start moving things around, and I'm looking around, and I push myself up onto my elbows, and I look down the length of my body, and I could see that white tip of my Chuck Taylor on my left foot glowing in the moonlight, and my right pant leg was just flat as a pancake. And I dropped my head back down, and I thought to myself, well, that's gone. That sucks. Felt no pain.
Wow. No
pain whatsoever. And that's saw my buddy, that one of the guys that I've been riding with, he was running towards me in the dark, and he was ripping his belt off of his pants, and Chris came sliding to a stop. Not the same Chris that you met.
Okay.
Totally different Chris. He came sliding up onto his knees next to me, and immediately started putting a tourniquet on, and I grabbed him, and I was like, Chris, is it really gone? And he's like, yeah, bro. Yeah, it's gone. And he continues trying to put the belt on and cinch it down. And I didn't share this for a long time, man. Long time. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, maybe, that I started openly sharing this with people. Because nobody wants to admit failure. It's tough, man. It's especially type A dude that does not fail.
How do you feel that you failed?
I grabbed Chris by the shoulder, and I got his attention, and I was like, dude, take that off. Just let me go.
Really?
Just let me go, man.
Why did you feel
in my mind, I was like, it was done, man. Everything that I had done to that point in time had been on 2 legs. How am I going to be a Navy OD tech on 1 leg, right? Mm-hmm. And Chris looked at me, and he was like, no way, bro. He's like, if anybody can get through this, it's you. He's like, it's not coming off. And it was so quick. It was like, I'm grabbing him by the shoulder saying, bro, just let me go, to him saying, no, dude, you're doing this, to, okay, I'm doing it. And I just never stopped. And truly, Zach, it has made me a better man. I've done more on this stupid metal leg than I ever did on 2 legs. It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
I interviewed a guy when I first started doing podcasts that had fallen 60 feet when he was 23, broke his back and was paralyzed from there on over. And I think he had 2 young children at the time. And he went on to win 2 Guinness World Records, get a PhD, write like 5 or 6 books, like an incredible life. And that was one of the questions I asked him, was like, do you think you'd have done all this cool shit if that had just been a Tuesday? And he's like, I don't know. You know,
You don't.
he had something to prove. And I can see that. I can see exactly where going through that process and then taking the intention or the changing your perspective to like, fuck you, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Exactly.
Could change your life in a really positive way.
And that's, man, I ended up, I was airlifted to Norfolk General. From Norfolk General, I was stabilized. They performed a couple of surgeries there. Then they transferred me to Portsmouth once I was stable. I spent 29 straight days in the hospital. I went through 9 surgeries in 29 days. Then they released me to home health care for 6 weeks. I had this, it's called PIC. Are you familiar with the PIC line?
A PIC line?
It's like a permanent IV port, or it's a more than temporary IV port that they put into your arm. And then I had these,
like for junkies?
yeah. It's this pressurized rubber ball that has full of antibiotics.
Huh.
And I had to, the pressure, it has a controlled squeeze that pushes antibiotic fluids through that IV port. So for 6 weeks, I had that pressurized ball connected to me pretty much 24/7, pumping antibiotics through me.
What did that do to your body?
It was horrible, man. The drugs they had me on and the antibiotics and Oxy does terrible things. We talked about this Thursday night. It's like, I'm so thankful that my body reacts to drugs that way, because I had 0 problems with addiction. I quit cold turkey. Doctors didn't want me to. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. It causes me to get angry, depressed, anxiety, claustrophobic. I'm very irritable.
Opiates or the antibiotics or what?
The opiates and the mix of the antibiotics, just like all the stuff they're pumping into your
antibiotics
system.
will fuck your gut.
Oh, it was
which
terrible.
controls your serotonin, which has a huge impact on anxiety and depression. That's why your diet has such a big effect.
I couldn't wear a watch. I was so claustrophobic. I couldn't.
Were you putting it around your neck?
I couldn't even put it on my wrist. I mean, I was in a bad place. So I after 6 weeks, I came off the antibiotics. In 4 weeks, I cut myself cold turkey off of all the pain drugs that they were giving me. All I took was Motrin. They transferred me to Walter Reed, and that's where I was really introduced to the fact that stuff like this is either going to break you and possibly end your life in a really long, drawn out, miserable path, or you're going to overcome it and you're going to be a better person for it. Yeah. And it's really, man, it's a choice that you have to make upstairs. And yeah, there's things that I've done on this, that, like running a marathon. I was 39 years old when I lost my leg. I started running in high school. I ran track and cross country for a year in high school, and then I just started playing football, but I just kept running. I ran all through the military. I never ran any organized races, and I had always said, I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to run a marathon. Well, at 39 years old, I never had. Once I started running on this amputation, I started running marathons. I started racing triathlons.
This ain't half bad.
It's
I'm only
not
half
man.
as tired as that guy.
Right? I
tink.
started running ultra marathons. You know, I don't know if I would have ever done that had I not lost this leg and been hit in the face with the depth of that challenge. It's like, okay, it wasn't important enough when I had my natural leg. How important is it to you now? And it became a challenge for myself, but I started seeing the benefit of not proving it to other people, but showing other people, okay, bad things can happen to you. Or you can look at this and think, holy cow, I can't do it. Like, come with me. I want to show you that you can. And that's really where my nonprofit started.
Was there a point at which you had to prove that to yourself?
I definitely had to prove it to Navy EOD. They wanted to medically retire me.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you didn't.
No, I pushed and pushed through it, and that's so. I was up until I lost my leg. I was what you basically call vanilla EOD. You know, I was on EOD platoons. Went to Iraq twice and ran around that. You know, I like to look at Iraq as my own like personal like demo range. We blew shit up everywhere, and you name it, we blew it up. Dogs, donkeys, airplanes, cars, buildings, you know, walls, you know, I mean,
yeah,
we did it all, right?
Yeah.
It was our playground. But it's, talking about blowing up dogs up, that brought a whole nother story, and I I forgot what direction that I was going in. The Navy
made you prove yourself.
Basically, you know, what you would call basically a vanilla special operations guy. And when I received my waiver to go back to full duty, I was in a training status. I was an instructor at our training unit on the East Coast. They sent me to Mobile Unit 8 in Spain, and when I reported there, they're like, you are going to be the team chief for a CRIF platoon, and you're going to go to, if you make it through the training, you're going to go to Germany and work with 10th Group. So for me, it was like, okay, either you guys are really hurting for manpower, or this is a make or break Aaron Ritter. He's either gonna do this and go do great things, or he's gonna fail and we're gonna push him out of the community in the Navy because he can't perform to the level of CRIF. And oddly enough, my best friend and mentor in Navy EOD, he was a command master chief on the West Coast, and Kevin called me on the phone and he's like, Aaron, what are your plans, dude? I'm laying in a hospital bed in Portsmouth. I was still in the hospital having surgeries performed. He's like, what do you want to do? What's your direction? I was in E6. I'm like, Kevin, my direction is I'm going to recover from this. I'm going to make chief, and I'm going to go be the LCPO of a team. I'm going to be a team chief. And he's like, oh, let's talk about this a little bit. He's like, man, I'm all about supporting your dreams, but I want you to have some reality. He's like, you're going to come out of the hospital and we can keep you in the community. He's like, I can't guarantee that you're ever going to make chief, and you're probably never going to be a team chief. You'll probably be permanent in readiness and training or operations, or maybe you'll go to a carrier platoon. He's like, and I was like, I'm going to go on an NSW CRIF team. And he's like, no, if you ever go back on a team, it's probably going to be a carrier team. If that, just let's keep it in perspective. I'm all about, if you want to try to stay on active duty, let's do it. But I want to keep it in perspective. And well, I got my waiver, and, I did everything that Navy EOD threw at me to do. And they sent me to Spain, and I was the team chief for a 4-man CRIF team at Mobile Unit 8, and they sent me up to 8th Group, and man, it was awesome. Just had the time of my life, and you'll enjoy this. We had to go to interop training in Colorado Springs. So none of the guys in the troop had ever met me or any of my guys. And so we show up there, and we're introducing them to, not introducing them to mop gear because the Army knows about mop gear, but we were going to start working with them on moving through the shoot house in full mop gear and masks.
That sucks.
So I told the guys on my team, I said, I typically wear shorts everywhere. And I said, I will be wearing pants. Nobody talks about my leg or me being an old man or anything until I deem it's time to let these guys know that I was in my 40s at that point, that I'm in my mid 40s and that I'm missing a leg. So we were boots on ground for probably 3, maybe 4 days. And we had been, did all the introductions, and the butt sniffing was starting to like settle out a little bit. Everybody, you're establishing those relationships and whatnot. And we had been running through the shoot house all morning. And with this whole thing going on here, when you start sweating, stuff starts sliding around. And I mean, I've learned to manipulate it and I can feel it, but I start getting like a ton of pistoning and it starts getting a little bit loose. And that's when I might trip on a star. I mean, we're in there and I mean, they shut all the windows and we're in there in full chem gear, nods on, clearing stairs. And I was getting to a point where I was like, I'm going to fall on my face. I've got to get this leg off and dry it off. So I was like, hey, can we get a training time out, go out and hydrate? I was like, I need to take care of something. They're like, all right, training time out. We're going to take 5, grab a smoke, whatever it is. So we come out of the shoot house, we come out of the fence line and everybody's like everybody's doffing their gear, getting comfortable. And man, I had a pair of black silkies on underneath my trousers and I ripped my ACPGs off. And I mean, it just went dead quiet. And one of the assaulters was like, what the fuck? I'm like, what? They're like, dude, you're missing a leg. And I was like, what? I am? Oh, what happened? I'm completely playing it off. And man, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was in a slump. He was having a hard time. He was making a ton of mistakes in the house and he was fucking up runs and they were riding him hard. And when everybody found out that, I had a metal leg, that turned up tenfold. They were like, this motherfucking Navy EOD guy.
That guy's only got one leg. What the fuck is wrong with you?
He's running circles around in there, and man,
I was
it's
like, say, that poor bastard's life
was
just
bad.
got so much worse.
It was bad. He and we had a good time together after that, but I felt so bad for him. I mean, they swarmed him at that point, but it was like it was a perfect timing. It was like I knew that I was going to have to prove something to those guys. And if I showed up showing all my cards, they would have already built a case against me before I even had a chance to start running around with them. So I covered it up for the first 3-4 days. And after, there were 0 complaints about the Navy dudes, what we were doing, we were holding our own. So then I dropped trowel and then it was like, holy cow.
It's the right way to do it. You walk in there with, particularly if it appears as though you're flaunting or showing that you have a disability or you have an excuse for maybe not doing as well. Like the fact, and in hindsight, the fact that you did that will be considered in their evaluation. Like, this motherfucker didn't say a word. He showed up, he did the job just like anyone else. And then we found out, like, I'm going to go shake his fucking hand.
I'm still good friends.
It's a respectable thing to do, and it required wisdom. That was fucking on point.
I've made that decision a couple times in my life. It's sometimes you have to know your crowd, and you have to know when and how to reveal the fact that I'm running around on metal legs.
Ace in the hole. Like, if I do fuck up, like, I can't. I'm like, hey man, I'm trying it here with a elastic leg. Eat a dick. But. That's awesome. Well played.
That's how I introduced, the leg to 10th group, and man, I just had a blast with them. And I went to SEER school, mid-40s, metal leg.
Nice.
That was a good time. And I reported to SEER school. You met Michael.
Yep.
He and I introduced him to my tattoo artist down in Virginia Beach, and I wanted a chest piece. So I was coming out of Spain. You're going to laugh at this. So I was like 4 years from retirement. Hadn't been to SEER yet. I was searing SEER school, like seriously.
Yeah.
And the 10th group and the CRIF elevated, and it was signed on paper that we elevated to a certain level, which was mandatory at that point, that anybody and everybody that was going to deploy had to go through SEER. There was no more gray area.
Yeah.
And so once those documents were signed, everybody had to go. So they were like, Ritter, you're going to SEER school. I'm like, really? Come on, man. I've made it this long. I'm in my mid-40s. I have 4 years left in the Navy. Do I really need to do this? And even if I stay in, I have 4 years of operational time before I'm going to go start, riding a desk job somewhere. Seriously? They're like, yeah, you're going. It's like, okay. I'm like, well, you know what? I want to fly into Norfolk. I'm going to see Michael and Corinne for a day or two. I'm going to go get this chest piece done, and then I'm gonna go report to Sears.
Ooh,
So
the fresh tattoo.
My whole chest piece had it done in one sitting, 12 hours and 15 minutes.
Holy shit.
Within 48 hours, I'm in Portsmouth, Maine, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, reporting to Sears School. A week later, we're headed to the mountains. And when we transitioned to the point to where we were captured, and the men and women had been segregated, and all the men were standing in this section in the snow, butt-ass naked, and here I am with a metal leg, river dick in a bad way, and this massive fresh tattoo. I mean, it's my whole chest sack. Wow. It's a beautiful nautical piece. You'd love it.
Nice.
And they start walking up to me, and one of the SEER instructors got right in my face. He was like, "This is a training timeout." He's like, "Seriously, are you going to be a fucking problem here?" And I was like, I was standing there just doing what I was told. I was like, "I'm not going to be a problem." He's like, "Sure looks like you're going to be a problem." He's like, "How fresh is that tattoo?" I'm like, "What day is it?" He's like, "I can't tell you that." And I was like, "Okay, I can tell you that I got it 2 days before I reported to training." He was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I was like, "No."
You're lucky to get infected.
I know.
It could have fucked the whole tat.
He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna ask you again, dude. Are you gonna be a problem?" I'm like, "I don't plan to be. Do I need to be?" And he was like, "No. All right, we're training timeout's over." And then they went back into character, and then it was game on again.
Nice.
And so yeah, I went to SEER school, mid-40s, metal leg.
Was it fun?
You know, how do you answer that? It sucked going through it. There's aspects of it that I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
It was, I will 100% say that it was the best realistic training the military has ever provided me.
Really? What level did you go through?
Don't remember. I don't know.
Okay.
It was early April up in Maine. There was still 3 feet of snow on the ground.
How long was it? Just 2 weeks? 3
No,
weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks? Okay.
Yeah. And man, it was incredible training. Everything that you go through there, you can apply it to stages of your life almost every day.
Really?
You know? Yeah. And there was, man, I have some very fond memories from that. I mean, the time of year that we went, I ate rock tripe for 3 days. Do you know what rock tripe is?
It's a fish.
It's a fungus.
It's a fungus.
It's like a moss.
Really?
It's a ashy, dry lichen that grows on the side of like granite.
What's that taste like?
It
Mud?
tastes like rock.
Okay.
It tastes like rock tripe. It's dry.
Yeah.
But anytime I walked by it, I was grabbing handfuls of it, shoving it in my pockets. I was shoving it down inside of my my layering. I had it in my armpits. I had it in my groin. It was like an insulation barrier for me. And then I'd just snack on it all day long, man. Eating snow, eating rock tripe. Had some great laughs, man. Never snowshoed in my life. And that all of a sudden you're snowshoeing, you know, and evading.
SEER in the winter sounds pretty awful.
But it was awesome, man. And then
naked in the snow.
Yeah. And then
they didn't make the girls get naked in the snow.
Well, by the time you reintegrated prior to getting captured, people had, you had your Gore-Tex that you were issued. You know, you had your layering system you were issued. When things got real squirrely, and they like wanted to put men in their certain mental places, then they segregated you. When they wanted to use that female influence, and then they would bring it back in. So they manipulated the environment to their benefit for what they were trying to teach at the time. One of my two most favorite memories from that 3 week period is we were in the initial classroom phase of it, and they were going through different examples and whatnot. And there was a Marine Corps EOD tech in there. I can't remember the guy's name. He was tall, handsome, gregarious, he was the Marine in the class that everybody gravitated towards. Dude was so funny. And they put him in a room with a girl and started going through a training scenario, and were expecting him to do certain things, and he wouldn't do it. Man,
Like what?
I won't talk about it, but they slapped him open hand so hard. And as soon as it happened, what they were trying to get him to do, he just immediately started doing it. It's like, oh my, just totally caved.
Wow.
And when they came out of the room, they were in a room with one-way glass. And when they came out of the room, all the dudes were laughing. He had this massive, like, you could see fingers on the side of his face. They hit him so hard. And it was like, you're such a quitter, bro. It's like, there was no fight. He was like, no reason for me to go through that again.
Yeah, right.
It was hilarious. That was one of my
chivalry is dead.
Yeah.
They killed it.
My second favorite part was at the very end. The way they closed it out for us was like they had people set up for execution. And you start hearing the audible of helicopters, and then you start hearing gunfire. And then you see the enemy flag that was on this flagpole come down, and the American flag start going up this flagpole, and they started playing the Star-Spangled Banner, man. And people were sobbing. I mean, there were service members on their hands and knees crying. It became so real for some of the people that were there. I mean, there were kids there, like 20 years old. There were aviators that were fresh out of aviation school. No leadership training whatsoever, other than whatever leadership training they had learned through ROTC or whatever academy they had been through. And I'm not a ring knocker. I don't know how much leadership is taught there, but I do know that those aviators lacked any foundation of leadership. And seeing the reaction from those classmates when that American flag went up that flagpole and we were being rescued and they knew that it was over. Wow. It was heavy.
I bet.
Yeah, it was cool. Anyhow, yeah, it was, I loved it, man. It was the best training the military ever put me through.
So SEER was awesome.
Yeah, I did. Would I volunteer to go do it again? No. There's no need to do it twice.
Yeah.
Unless you're forced to, but I'm thankful that I'm thankful that I had that experience.
I wanted to go. I thought that it was going to be I was really seeking my limits. I was like, I want to find the thing I can't do. And I thought SEER might be that, or at least be another cool experience to get through. And I ended up getting pulled away from it for mandatory Mojave Viper pre-deployment that everyone had to attend, and then got made an aggressor for the infantry.
Gotcha.
So I had nothing. But Naked and Afraid was probably my SEER, as close as I got to it.
I would imagine that you probably went through some of the things that we did as far as like the survival aspect of it and limited food sources and and
I lost 30 pounds in
alone time.
Days. Yeah,
alone time.
Yeah, my partner left on day 4, so I did 17 days and nights alone in the jungle. That was a lot.
Yeah,
that sucked.
Yeah,
so that kind of felt like that was my SEER, but I've always wondered about it too. That was one that I wanted to do.
Yeah, it was. I'm so thankful that it happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the fact that you said it applied to your life, what did you mean by that?
There's just certain things about it. I would say that
learning to suffer in silence and just get through the middle.
Well, and the mental toughness and, being able to work through the scenario and how do you stay focused and how do you there's a portion of time that I spent, alone, in a very little space and trying to do things to keep your mind sharp where you're at, trying to keep some recollection of time and what's going on around you and just focusing on those things. I'm sure that what you did during your 17 days alone, that there's aspects of that you use through hard times in day to day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
They're tools in your toolbox that when you need them,
Mm-hmm.
you can use them. They're at your disposal. If you don't get exposed to that, you really don't know what you're capable of.
Right.
Yep. There's a book out there. I can't remember the guy's name. It's called The Comfort Crisis. If you read or you like audiobooks,
I do.
look up The Comfort Crisis. And the book talks about how humans are not made. Our brains, our wiring, our personas are not made to live in comfort.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be challenged every day. That's why I seek the backcountry. And this book encourages you to go get in the backcountry, challenge yourself, experience hardship, learn to detach from all of this and rely on your mind and your physical abilities and to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think I may have read it when it was Ted Kaczynski's manifesto. Have you ever read that?
I have not. Maybe I need to.
Dude, it's right on par with that.
Is it?
It's actually incredibly insightful. He is on point with almost everything he says. But where he fucked up was how he got his message out.
There you go.
Because it completely undermined him. Everyone wrote him off as a lunatic for trying to kill people, and rightfully so. That was not the way to do it.
Yeah.
But that was how he was trying to build the following or the publicity to get his message out. But his message was fucking right on.
I'll have to read it.
It's worth the read.
Okay.
It is worth
I love
the
to read.
You'll,
I love to read.
You'll like it.
Okay.
You'll like it.
What I don't talk about a lot, Zach, and I don't want to dive into it on the show. I know that a lot of your guests do. I know sometimes you try to pull that out of people. I don't like to focus on bad stuff. Okay. I'm 100% disabled through the VA. This metal leg is just it's the visual portion of all the damage that I have going on.
Yeah.
PTSD, depression, anxiety, all the bad stuff. I have the Santa sack of stuff that I've had to, sort through all those wonderful gifts after departing the military. I don't like to focus on that. I've PTSD from the fire department. I still remember, started out as a volunteer, and I still remember the very first call that I went on. And it was a very young female child that was ran over by a car. It's vivid. That was the first call that I ever went on. Still remember it to this day.
I bet.
Vividly. Terrible.
I can't imagine a worst first call for anyone to experience.
Really good at compartmentalizing all that stuff.
Are you?
I was for a long time. I was.
We all tell ourselves we are. I thought I was. Not true at all.
I was brilliant at it until I hit the tail end of my career and started staring down the barrel of retirement and looking at where my life was at. And
I have a theory on that.
It all started coming out. And I tell people I'm open to it. And my chocolate lab saved my life.
Really?
Yep. He
pulled you out of a frozen river, or just showed you how to love again?
He was laying next to my bed when I had a muzzle of a pistol stuck in my mouth.
Really?
And it was it's my mom and dad and the team sergeant that I worked with on my ODA. It's I'm not going to share names, but his theory was, he was like, suicide is fucking pussy. He was like, you could be the best operator, one of my best friends. You start a pistol. He was like, in your death, you're going to know that I think you're a fucking pussy. He's like, it's the easy way out. Don't do it. And laying there in bed.
Did that have an impact on your decision?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yep, it did. And having a 6-month-old dog sitting next to my bed, relying on me.
That responsibility.
One of the things that kept me alive. Yep.
I think responsibility plays a huge role in it. And
I think so.
And guys get lost and they get out of the military and they're void of responsibility, at least like we used to have.
Yeah.
Right? Like how do you get that level back again after serving for however long, 28 years, right? There's moments in there that you were the man making the decision for the task that had to be done. That's a huge amount of responsibility. And then we come home and it's like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Like the options are infinite and that's overwhelming as fuck. Like where do I even start orient myself. I don't know yet. And
some people don't even know who they are.
Sure. And I think that there's a social currency among men where if you show to me, whether we're talking shit to each other or we're in traffic or we get into an argument at the bar, that you can remain cool, calm, and collected, I respect you and I want you on my team when bullets start flying. But no one shows us when it's then acceptable to let that shit out.
Yeah.
And so we never do. And it doesn't stay in. I know. Now.
At some point in time, it's going to come out.
It really does. And sometimes it doesn't come out until the career is over. And then you don't have that next call or that next mission to distract yourself or to stay in the mission. Like, no, I've got to stay all this bottled up because these men are relying on me and that's my purpose. Right on. But when they're not, that shit's coming back, and you better be intentional with how you process it. Have a fucking plan, because it will. And that hit me. That I had no idea that was coming.
It hit me when I hit my last couple of years in the Navy,
really?
And I was riding a desk and going to medical appointments.
The responsibility was gone.
Late 40s, and stopped PTing as much. I didn't have to push the body as hard. And at first it's like, I'm going to take a break. My body hurts. I'm going to take a break. Well, at that age and at those stress levels and with your testosterone in the toilet, and there's a military stigma that they don't want to treat it, my body started falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And everything just started falling apart. And mentally, I just started spiraling downhill. And I'm a huge advocate for mental counseling, for mental health counseling. Huge advocate for it. I used to say, no way. There's nothing wrong with me. No way. And almost learned the hard way, very thankful for it. But I don't like to focus on that kind of stuff. For me, it's like, people need to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they need to hear it from me.
Okay.
I want people to hear from me what's on the other side of that. If you take the opportunity of the tools that are available to you to get through that darkness, and you start moving that needle in the right direction again, there's wonderful things on the other side of it. And go find those things that make you happy and that help you continue to cleanse your soul and get rid of that sludge that's been rolling around inside your heart and mind and soul for so long. And for me,
tell me what you found.
For me, Zach, is it was running for quite a while. I mean, I started running marathons, ultra marathons, 50Ks, 60Ks. It's where I met my wife. God bless her.
She just couldn't outrun you, huh?
She helped me finish my first 50K.
Oh, okay.
Yep, she did. But that transition to getting back into backpacking and backcountry hunting, and that's where my life is at. And then helping other people, and that's why
Did you grow up hunting?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
You knew how to do it. You were just now tasked with navigating, how do I do it with one leg?
Correct.
Did you have any trouble? I want to touch on this because I tried a news segment with the last episode. They're probably going to cut it out. It's mostly me talking shit. But one of the segments that I reviewed was the issues that veterans with amputees are having getting prosthetics, particularly prosthetics that allow them to do anything athletic. Because prior to, most of the people that were amputees were older, and they weren't kayaking and running 60Ks and all the shit that the young generation of amputee veterans are doing now or trying to, but that the VA are getting those is incredibly difficult. Have you experienced any of that?
So I am extremely fortunate, having lost this on active duty and being put into the warrior pipeline at Walter Reed.
Okay.
I have, as long as I want to drive myself there, I'm taken care of.
That's awesome.
Now a civilian, totally different. And again, that's going to bleed into
even a veteran
my grant.
Civilian?
So veterans going through the VA, man, I don't deal with the VA with my prosthetic because it is a huge pain in the ass.
That's what I was reading.
They drag their feet while you're dragging your foot or your feet trying to get care. It's terrible. Typically with the VA, if you're a veteran, you will get an ambulatory foot and a running foot. That can happen. You may not get multiple of them, but most veterans will be provided more than one leg. Civilian, that's not the case. A civilian is just as tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Our medical insurance, civilian medical insurance, is atrocious. It's a mafia.
It's a racket.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they're just making
They
millions.
force an amputee, a lower limb amputee, they force them to choose between a leg that they can walk on or a leg they can run on.
What's the difference? Why couldn't you walk on a leg you can run?
It's so that's like a blade, and they're designed to run. And when they're built correctly, that leg is taller than their regular leg because when you're running, the compression.
Wow.
So it has to be taller so that when you step forward and load it, it shifts down. Now your hips are level, and then it springs forward. Because two things that I miss having of all, I wouldn't change any of this, Zach. I wouldn't.
You didn't do calf raises before. I can already tell.
If you said, "Hey, Aaron, when this podcast is over and you walk out the door, you magically you have the option to magically have your leg back," I would say, "No, thanks. You can keep it."
Really?
Yeah. This has made me such a better person, but I do miss two things. I miss having a calf muscle.
Yeah.
And I miss ankle articulation. That's about it. And that's what the spring of that running leg does. It's like it's having that calf muscle again. A walking leg is it's smoother and allows you to ambulate throughout the day without expending as much energy. It's easier on the end of your stump. Yet it fits in all your regular shoes. I mean, some people wear flip-flops with them. You can't do that with a running leg. Nor can you take off on this leg and go run a 50K on it. You'll destroy your limbs. So there's that. People need both.
Yeah.
And when I say people need both, like if you're an overweight diabetic and you didn't exercise or do anything before you lost your leg, and I'm not saying that doesn't mean you wouldn't want to change your lifestyle and better yourself after the amputation, because a lot of people do. But if you don't want to do it, don't go spend $25,000 of medical insurance to have a running leg that's just going to sit in a closet just because you can get it.
Right.
But if an amputee wants it, if a civilian amputee, especially a child or a youth or early 20s, wants a running leg, they have to fund it or find a grant, or there is an organization down in Tennessee called the Amputee Blade Runners, and they do grant and nonprofit work providing running legs for civilians so that they can have that walking leg and have a running leg. We'll talk about it with my grant. That's one of the decision makers for my grant. Why do it?
Tell me about it. Are you ready to use anything else?
Yeah, let's do it. So, I made it through that tail end of the military, and I retired.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking to pave my way. Where am I going to go? When I retired, I was 100% ready to go. There was no depression for me. There was no identity loss or an identity crisis. I was ready to go. But I knew I needed direction. And so I started getting heavily back into hunting and backcountry hunting, because I didn't do it for quite a while because I was doing stuff for the Navy.
Yeah.
And so I started packing in again, was back heavy into the bow, and just really focus on the positive benefits of what that provides a person mentally, physically, spiritually. And I was connected with one of the co-owners of HHA USA. They make, in my opinion, and they've proven it for 20 years now, the best bow sight on the market.
Okay.
And Chris Ham, said co-owner, he has a nonprofit. It's the HHA USA. And it originally was founded to provide funds for honor flights. Chris is not a veteran, loves veterans. So he started raising money for honor flights, are you familiar with honor flights?
I've heard of that. Remind me again what that is, at least the audience.
They provide travel and lodging, like they will travel World War II, Vietnam, Korea War veterans to DC, and they take them down to the memorials. They fly them out there, they escort them, they reconnect them with people that they served with. That's what honor flights do. So Chris started saving money for honor flights. And through that process, he started doing a podcast. So a guy that I met randomly, he's a friend of mine now. He's currently on my board with my nonprofit. He reached out to Chris and said, "Hey, Chris, I'm in hunting camp with this guy that I've never met before. You need to get on a podcast with him. You're going to love it. You're going to love it." So Chris reached out to me and we sat down on it was a Thursday or Friday to do a podcast, and it was via, it was remote.
Okay.
He was in Wisconsin.
Zoom.
I was in Virginia Beach. And his recording platform wasn't Zoom. I don't remember what it was, but it didn't like Apple products, and I had an Apple, so we couldn't record. So we just sat and talked on the phone for an hour. And his podcast had started during COVID because he wanted a way to stay connected with veterans or law enforcement officers, people that were either suffering and or recovered from PTSD. And he's focused on funding, veteran suicide and all of that. And so he and I are talking, and he starts talking about why he started his nonprofit. And that I chewed on it and chewed on it and chewed on it. And that Sunday, the following Sunday morning, I was sitting on the couch with my wife having coffee. And I had, LIMB-itless Outdoors had been on Facebook and Instagram at that point. And I'd been a keynote speaker at a couple of places and talking to people about positivity and, being limitless and overcoming obstacles and, just living life and accomplishing your goals and all of that. But I was doing it from a social platform, nothing tangible, right? And I'm sitting there looking at my wife. I said, "Honey, I got to talk to you about something. I need to do something." And she's like, "What do you want to do now?"
She's like, "Here we go."
Bless her heart.
What caliber is it?
And
again?
I said, I was like, "I want to start a nonprofit. I want to start a grant. I want to put archery equipment in the hands of an amputee every year, and I want to leverage the mental and physical health benefits of archery with amputees. I want to do it every year. I want to try to get as much archery, at least the basic bow package. So the bow, a sight, the rest, release, a quiver, arrows, a rangefinder, and a target. At least that basic archery package at a minimum. And I want to give it away to an amputee every year." And I was like, "Baby, this is going to be low impact," because I was still trying to work in a post retirement career. I was hunting all over the place. I was hunting out of state. I was averaging 3 to 5 states a year that I was hunting deer, elk, or turkey in. And so I was like, "Baby, it's going to be really low impact. It's not going to add another tremendous responsibility onto my plate."
How's that turned out?
Don't ask her, please. Yeah, don't ask Tara.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Baby, I'm 100% on board. I think you need to do this." She goes, "I have one question for you. If you do this, and like this year, you start advertising it and you're not able to get people to donate this basic bow package, are you willing to fund it with our money?" And I said, if you are, I am. She said, 100% I'm in. Let's do this.
Wow.
So I started the annual amputee archery grant initiative, and we call it the A3G initiative. That seed was planted by Chris Ham. That first year, I raised over $8,000 worth of archery equipment and outdoor gear.
Nice.
And our first recipient was missing his arm, and he was a civilian, and so a single arm amputee. And we put a bow in his hand. I drove my truck full of gear to the Total Archery Challenge in Pennsylvania, and they were gracious enough to let me park my truck. I had a custom wrap on it, and they allowed me to park my truck down on their practice range with if you don't know anything about Total Archery Challenge, it's one of the biggest 3D movements in the United States. Archers flock to it. They host it on ski resorts. So you spend however many times, and they have multiple courses at every event. You can spend one morning or 3 days there shooting these courses, and you're climbing all over the ski slopes, just having a blast. They're very technical. They're a ton of fun. And they have a truck that you can pay money to take shots at this target. And if you hit the bullseye, you get entered into the raffle for that truck. And you can enter it as many times as you want. And they're killer trucks. They are outfitted top to bottom. And they let me park my truck right next to the tack truck for that year. And Prime Archery had donated the bow that year, and they had a booth there, or a tent. So Prime came over, and we did the announcement right there at TAC, and we announced who our recipient was going to be year one. And then Chris Ham has archery shoots up in Wisconsin as fundraisers. So I drove the truck up to Wisconsin and met the recipient there and delivered over $8,000 worth of archery and outdoor equipment to this guy. And they did a short film on it. Chris Ham did. And we shot his 3D shoot with him and just, made some great friends and everything. That year, I was not a 501c3. I was just doing it on my own. And I would advertise to people, I'm doing this not for profit. There's no financial gain from this. Going into its second year, I had lost funding because of that. And so I went
because you weren't a 501c3?
Because I was not a 501c3. There were a lot of companies that would not donate because I was not a legitimate 501c3.
They can't write it off.
No EIN number. And so the second year, I submitted all the documentation and paperwork, and we are officially a 501c3. Brought my board on. That second year, you met Chris Dunlap and everybody at the 4-day ranch and everybody that supports this hunt. Second year, we added the all-inclusive Texas whitetail hunt to it, which we'll go into detail about that in a second. Man, that was amazing. Holy cow, was that amazing. And so we closed out the second year, valued around $15,000 total. And then probably a little more than that with everything involved with that hunt. And then this year, our third year, the owner of Gas Bowstrings, Gas Bowstrings is the largest custom bowstring manufacturer in the world. They're out of Clay City, Kentucky. Gas has been providing bowstrings for the grant since year one. And Eric caught me at the ATA, the Archery Trade Association. It's the archery version of the SHOT Show, but nowhere near as big. You're familiar with the SHOT Show?
Oh yeah.
So that's the ATA is kind of like that, the archery version of the SHOT Show. Eric grabbed me. He's like, "Hey man, I need to do more than just provide strings. I want to host your recipient at Gas. Can we pull this off?" He's like, I know you guys are doing great things, but if you bring him to us, we have podium level shooters on staff at Gas. We can provide one-on-one coaching for however long you're there. Let's look at 3 days. So this last summer, we took our recipient to Gas. He actually helped build his bow. So they swapped the string and cables out with the factory Hoyt with Gas custom strings on all the colors and everything that he wanted on them. And he helped put his sight on. He helped put his rest on. He helped tie in his D loop. He helped tune his bow. And then we started shooting. And you met Dustin.
I did.
Dustin, 24 years old, bilateral lower limb amputee, below knee amputee on both legs, has 4 fingers on his draw hand, is right-handed, left eye dominant. I mean, he is an archery train wreck.
Yeah,
like
I didn't know all the left eye, right hand.
Yeah, it's like if there's a card in the deck of not allowing somebody to shoot a bow, he holds all of them.
How did he have an injury?
He was born with it.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
He's been living with it his whole life. And when he applied, we have a crossbow on our application. I have it there in case we have somebody that is an upper limb bilateral amputee. We'll talk about that in a minute too. He selected crossbow when he applied. And when we sifted through our applications for 2024, it was almost unanimous. Dustin was the number one guy. The heartache that I had was he had selected crossbow. So I called him on the phone. I was like, hey, Dustin, this is Aaron Ritter with the A3G initiative. And we've gone through our selection process. You are our number one pick this year. And he's like, you've met him. He's so quiet and just, soft and just a wonderful kid. And he's, oh, wow, that's awesome. Wow. I can't believe you guys selected me. This is amazing. I can't imagine anything like this would ever happen to me and this and that, Dustin is all about serving other people. And I said, there's one problem. You selected crossbow. He's like, yeah, I can't shoot a bow. I was like, why? Well, I tried once at a summer camp when I was a lot younger, and it didn't go well, and I couldn't do it, so I have to have a crossbow. And I said, well, I'm like, Dustin, that's a problem because you have both of your upper limbs. He's like, yeah, but my right hand, I only have 4 fingers, and I have some webbing issues and strength issues in my hand. And I said, are you a volunteer firefighter? I am. I said, okay. So you're a volunteer firefighter. You have both of your arms. And you're telling me that you can't shoot a bow. I'm like, that's not going to fly. I said, so here's the deal. If you want to be the 2024 A3G initiative recipient, you're going to trust me and know that I have a team of people built around you that's going to make you successful. You will be shooting a bow this year. If you don't trust us and you say no, then we're going to go with our runner-up, because I will not put a crossbow in the hands of somebody that has both their arms. Yeah. That's not what this program is about. And he said, okay, I'll pray. I'm going to put my trust in you, and I'm going to pray about it, and I'm going to be a recipient. That kid showed up to gas. You could see the anxiety. I mean, it was heavy. And we built his bow, and he stepped up to maybe the 10-yard line. And we just wanted to make sure that he didn't launch an arrow through the ceiling. And man, we put together a small video of this. It's on YouTube. Man, you want to talk about hitting you in the feels. When you watch that kid stand there on his metal legs, draw that compound bow back and fire that first shot, and then his reaction to it afterwards, awesome. It's incredible. And then we moved him out to 20. His very first shot at 20, dead center on that target.
Wow.
And
had he been practicing, or was that
he had never done it? He'd never done it. He's naturally very accurate with the bow until you put hair on it. You put hair on the target and the wheels fall out the wagon. But that happens to all of us.
It does. It is different.
We can talk about that, but anyhow,
it is different.
That's the A3G initiative. That's the foundation of it. That's where it started. Now, it's an onion, Zach. There's so many layers to that onion. I founded it to help people get out of the house. I wanted them to get off of the couch. I wanted to get them out of their chair, out of their wheelchair, off their crutches. All of those are crutches, in my opinion. Go do something positive. Get out of the darkness and the staleness of your home. Pick up a bow. Shooting a bow takes your mind off of everything. You knock that arrow, you connect your release, and you start your draw cycle. Everything focuses on that. You put the pin on the target, and then you go through your release cycle, and the shot breaks, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. It's so healthy, and I wanted to use that. I wanted to have it open to any amputee. I'd love to have it open to any amputee that is in the United States as a citizen. We can't afford right now, due to lack of funding within the program, to serve Alaska, Hawaii, or U.S. territories like Puerto Rico or Guam. We can't travel the recipient back and forth. We can't afford to ship their equipment back and forth. So we restrict it to the lower 48. But it's open to 18 years or older, male or female, any amputee in the lower 48. They are eligible to apply for our program, and if they're selected, they're going to be our recipient for that year. We do one because we want that person to feel as special as they can for the entire year. Our grant is now worth over $25,000. Gas is hosting our recipient now. You came out to the ranch and you saw the army of people out there. It's a small army, but without that small army, it wouldn't happen. Asking those people to set aside their lives and their careers more than once a year to do that it's a big ask. It's impacting spouses, wives, husbands, kids, other relatives, other friends and family members and whatnot. So we do one person a year, but it's open to any amputee. And that's a conversation that I think you and I are going to have today.
Yeah.
My nonprofit is veteran founded. I served a total of 28 years for the Navy. The majority of my board members are veterans. They're retired and they are 100% disabled through the VA. But my program that I founded is open to any amputee. And the reasons for that, one of them is because I didn't lose my leg in combat. I've never called myself a wounded warrior because I didn't lose my leg in combat. I've had a lot of people tell me that I'm wrong for looking that I'm combat deployed. I've been to combat multiple times. I'm a warrior, but that's not how I advertise myself. I lost this thing riding a Harley. I'm given a lot of benefits as a veteran. And when I was on active duty, I was afforded a lot of benefits and assistance with this leg. Civilians don't get that. As a retired veteran, especially as a disabled veteran, I'm afforded and offered so many opportunities, right? I prefer to go hunt by myself. I prefer to do it myself, but there's a lot of people that don't. They don't go hunt or fish unless it's being offered by a program somewhere. Civilians do not have that opportunity. If on the top of your head, can you think of any hunting opportunities that are open to civilians? It's
like charity type stuff?
Yes.
Usually just kids.
Exactly, right?
Youth programs.
And maybe like law enforcement, first responders, a few of them that are out there.
Or women. There's some women
females.
stuff, but yeah, it's not nearly like veterans.
Across the board.
For sure.
Very, very hard to come by.
Yeah.
And, I didn't lose my leg in combat. There's things that combat injured veterans deal with that I don't. There's certain things that took place in country. They left a physical part of their body in that foreign country. I left mental parts of my body in foreign countries, but not a physical piece.
Sure.
Other than an ice cream scoop flesh of my thigh is still probably cooking in the sand and into crit, but that was self-inflicted kind of. That's a whole nother story for another time. I had a wound on my leg. We called it the leg pussy for a couple of days. But anyhow, but everything else involved with losing a limb or being born without a limb, we all carry a lot of this similar emotional baggage. We all go through those different phases of loss. We all have to overcome or deal with learning how to use these medical or metal pieces of equipment that we have attached to our body. All of us do. Veterans or civilians.
Yeah.
And again, we talked about the ability to get a running leg. They don't have the support that a veteran does. I wanted to provide that opportunity. Then there's the other piece of it. And this is where where some people might get butthurt, but it is what it is. I've attended 2 veteran hunts.
Yeah.
And I volunteered at a couple of veteran hunts. And I have unfortunately been around veterans that spend their life attending free events. And they judge and gauge the events that they want to attend by how much free stuff they receive. They judge them by whether or not they can openly drink alcohol and how much they're going to get and whether it's free or they have to pay for it. I've been to veteran events where it's basically kill camp, man. There's no ethics taught It's show up. You can legally kill 5 animals in a 3-day period, and they're going to make darn sure that they try to put you on 5 different animals to pull a trigger on. The veterans aren't pulling their own animals out of the field. They're not a part of the processing process. Some of them show up not even wanting to take the meat home. They just show up wanting to kill something. I've seen some really gross things, and I've removed myself from dinner tables because I'm listening to veterans openly judging different organizations and what they provide. Like a guy sitting at the table, I say, "Oh yeah, I'm leaving here and I'm going to this hunt," and 1 or 2 other guys would say, "Oh man, you just don't show up or cancel. That one's crap. They don't give you anything. The lodging's terrible. The food's not great. They don't give you anything. But sign up for this one, man." Holy cow, you're eating 5-star food. They gave us Yeti coolers and we got Sitka gear and you're out hunting trophy animals. Don't even go to that other one. Sign up for this one. I've got a buddy that can probably help get you into that. Just got it from the table and left. It's like, this is so gross. But there's a limited pool now. You know, we're not in combat state right now. We're not having an endless flow of injured service members coming out of theater, filling the halls of Walter Reed, having, limbs sewed up and metal prosthetic legs or arms made for them so they can start learning life again. There's not this flood of veterans out there to go to all these different organizations, and you got these same guys that are just going all year long to fishing opportunities and turkey hunts and duck hunts and goose hunts and deer hunts and elk hunts and all this stuff. And they're all, everybody has to do something to feel good. Everybody's got to do something to stay alive. And I respect that. And if that's what somebody needs to be able to go to sleep every night and to wake up every morning and keep doing it again, if that's what they need, then go do that. I don't really agree with it. I was at a veteran activity where you had to sign a waiver stating that this was a dry event. There was no alcohol. The founder of the program is a very faithful Christian man. Everything is built there off of faith. Most of their volunteers are there off of their connection to faith. They want to have an open, healing environment for people. They don't preach to you while you're there, but their organization is founded on faith, and you sign a document that you will not drink while you're there, and you will not use any illegal drugs or any narcotics that are not currently prescribed to you as a doctor. And there were dudes that smuggled alcohol. They were getting drunk and smoking weed in the parking lot. I'm just like, to me, that's a tremendous amount of lack of respect, right?
That's a stain for sure.
And I don't want that in my organization. And I'm an ethical hunter, and I want people to learn that. And I do believe that there's value in that. So when I founded the A3G initiative, not only did I want to leverage archery for the mental and physical health benefits of it, but I wanted to capitalize on the lessons learned out in the field. How do you become a successful hunter? What is it about? Is hunting just pulling the trigger or sending an arrow, or is it the outdoor experience, the fellowship, the connection with other people? Whether you're a veteran or civilian or not, you're out sharing the field with somebody. You're sitting in a tent in a blind with Dustin, continuously working on that connection, teaching him life lessons, teaching him. He's like, I didn't even think about, when I've sat in a blind previously, I was just wearing camo. They can see the camo. I need to be wearing a black top. I should be blacking out my face. How much movement's going on. It's like, how do I prepare myself for the hunt? What am I going to do with the meat? How do I recover my animal? All those aspects of it. This particular hunt, we were successful in so many aspects other than recovering the animal and filling a tag. Dustin shoots lights out. 100% shoots lights out. You put him 30 yards and closer, and he will outshoot a lot of seasoned archers. And he's only been shooting a bow since June. When he arrived at the ranch, the first thing that we did was pull his bow out of the bow case, inspect it to make sure it wasn't damaged through travel. We sent him down to the 10-yard line. He sent an arrow. We backed him up to 20 yards, had him standing up on his 2 metal legs, just crushing the bullseye, moved him out to 30, sat him down in a blind so he had to shoot in that confined space, crushing the bullseye at 30 yards, transitioned over to 3D targets, just hammering the kill zone on those 3D targets. That was Thursday night. Saturday evening, he had like Pope and Young class deer coming in on him, and he sent 3 arrows that night in the span of 60 minutes. The first 2 completely missed. One of them was at 20 yards, shot completely over its back. Third arrow that he sent, he hit too far back on, was not a quality shot by any means. We waited about 45 minutes, went out, started the track. We had a little bit of blood on the ground at impact. It was a pass through, full pass through. There was blood and unfortunately paunch on the arrow.
Is that rumen? Paunch. It's
stomach matter, stomach content.
That sucks.
Didn't have another drop of blood for 200 yards, and it was about the size of my thumb, and we never found blood again. We backed out, called in a dog, had a guy come in with 2 dogs, and they attempted tracking Sunday morning. No recovery. Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Huge lessons learned, right?
Yeah. It happens.
That afternoon, we went back out onto the flat range with Dustin, saying, "You're going to shoot again." At 30 yards, his next shot after those 3 bad shots the night before, he had never shot his bow at 30 yards standing on his metal legs. He had not shot at that distance standing on his prosthetics. And we're like, "You're shooting from right here. It's time to knock the dust off and get this done." Knocked an arrow, drilled a 3D target. It's buck fever.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
It's people they don't understand it until they've experienced it. It's 100% real. Just the mere fact that he had antler and hair in front of him, just lost his composure. Just his shot cycle went to pieces. The learning lessons for us were, and what we imparted on him. So this is hunting. We had the availability to send him home with meat, but in the real world, if Dustin goes out into public or other private property and he wounds an animal and doesn't recover it, he's not taking meat home. There's no meat to recover if you can't recover your animal. So he went home without meat. Our all-inclusive package for our recipient is all their travel to and from the airport, the ride on the plane, all of the baggage, their lodging while they're here, all their food while they're here, the one-on-one guide on a 2,300-acre low-fence ranch. They are the first hunter on this ranch every year for anything. There's no pig hunting or deer hunting prior to our recipient arriving for opening weekend or week of deer season here in Texas, and that's one-on-one guiding. He has all the meat processing is donated. Shipping of the meat is donated. In his own custom Grizzly cooler that has the A3G Initiative logo on the top, his meat is shipped to him in that cooler, and he gets to keep that Grizzly cooler. We have a full shoulder mount donated to our recipient, and the shipping of that shoulder mount. It is a lifetime, all-inclusive whitetail hunting opportunity. And Dustin is going home without any meat and no trophy. Heartbreaking for us. And you could see the sadness in him, but we agreed as a board and what we want to communicate to the ranch owner and the ranch manager. And they asked us, "Are you going to take him out again? Go get back in the tent and do it again." And we said, "No, we're not. We can't do that. That was a live animal. We respect the animals." Dustin burned his tag, and it was a hard thing.
Sure.
He took it like a champ. There was a ton of remorse and sadness, but he said, I truly appreciate what you guys are doing and what you're trying to teach, and I fully respect your decision. He's like, I don't want to go wound another animal. And that's why
you're good.
That's why we got him straight back onto the range. But, we've had a lot of different people apply for our program. And I will tell you that if we have a veteran apply, we're going to take a serious look at that veteran, because veterans are near and dear to my heart. I love my brothers and sisters, man. Yeah. I 100% do. My heart breaks for all of them that are suffering and that are struggling and moving forward in life. But sometimes those struggles are self-imposed or self-inflicted, right? Last year, our recipient was a single leg below knee amputee. He was a Army veteran. He got out of the Army and was hired by Maryland State Patrol, and he was a Maryland State Patrol officer for several years. He lost his leg in a motorcycle accident, cost him his career as a Maryland State Patrolman. When he recovered, and I shouldn't say it cost him his career, he made the decision that he did not want to pursue that career as an amputee. He probably could have. He chose to become a firefighter. And he now is a paid firefighter and paramedic for a fire department out on the eastern shore of Maryland. When he applied, he was a veteran, and we took that very seriously. He is not an individual that he's not a career event enthusiast or whatever you want to call it, right? Event jumper.
Yep.
No, he has private property that he can hunt on the Eastern Shore. When he applied for our grant, he had never harvested an antler deer before. He had only harvested does with a rifle or a crossbow. He had never really shot a compound bow, and he was a very qualified applicant. And we appreciated what he was doing, but he was still serving his fellow man. He was living a positive life, husband, father, and contributing to his city, had served his country, and we wanted to give back to him. Dustin, even though Dustin's a volunteer firefighter, he is a substitute school teacher. He's a troop leader for Trail Life. He is giving back to mankind. He's never been on this kind of a hunting event before. Last year's recipient had never been on this kind of a hunting event before. Those are the people that we want to cater to. Those are the people that we want to reach out to. Dustin is, the things that we've been able to do with Dustin this year in outside of archery has been a gift and life-changing for all of us involved. If you watch the video at Gas, we interview the owner of Gas, Eric Griggs, and he states on camera what he said. I had no idea that what was going to happen here at my facility was going to change my life. He's like, it's had an impact on my life, and everybody in my company that was involved with Dustin in this event. It's been a life-changing event for everybody.
Wow.
It's amazing. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. And there might be, I've lost funding or donations because people say, well, you're not focused on veterans. No, I'm not. Well, we only donate to or support organizations that are focused on veterans. And I'm like, okay, I respect that. I respect that. That doesn't work for me.
Are they aware of event jumping being a thing?
Have no idea.
I feel like it would be a really great just audit or a program or a website to create of just, hey, if you guys give away, put whomever your recipients are on this list, and then if everyone can come together and do that, you can audit those types of things.
Good.
Before I give anything away, I go check the website, whatever, to see if he's been somewhere else in the country this year already. To ensure that that's not happening. Because if they're not just funneling, tax write-offs around and give a shit, I think that they would care. And I don't know, Is there any other way to audit that? Is there any other way to hold accountability?
Other than trying
to create a way to communicate?
other than doing your own homework.
Yeah.
You know, when an application comes in, you just try to do your own homework on.
But how would you even do that other than social media stalking? And
tough.
If they don't post it, then
it's tough. Yep, it's tough.
Is it bad enough problem, do you think, to warrant something like that? Or did you just get such a disgusting look at it that you're like, I am not facilitating that?
I personally, I'm not going to spend my time trying to do it.
Yeah.
That's where I said, you know what? I want to do what I feel is right. I want to help people. I want to try to help. You know, our methodology is overcoming obstacles through archery. That is what we do. And that's what we're going to continue to do. And I can't make decisions for other nonprofits. They run their organizations the way they see fit, and some people may not care.
Yeah.
And there's some guys that they go back to the same. They go back and do it again year after year, every other year. They're
regulars.
They are.
Well, maybe they don't.
And it's accepted.
Shit, then, yeah.
And some people, you know, they're okay with that.
I guess it matters the expectation of the charity. Whether you're being deceitful as a guest or whether they're like, yeah, man, come back next year. It'd be good to see you. We write the same 100,000 off every year, so we can have the same 12 guys come in.
Could be. Yeah, they might be 100% okay with that.
That's possible.
It is. You know, it's how I view the world and how I view things happening around me and how I react to that. That's Aaron Ritter.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be Zach.
Sure.
Doesn't have to be everybody else, right? It's wrong for me. It doesn't mean it's wrong for them.
Well, that's the beauty of the free market and the ability to create a charity.
It is.
Right? And what the government taking things over and telling everyone that we'll take care of the disabled people, we're just going to tax you so we can do it, kind of undermines that. Because they just create this blanket program and they don't give a shit. They're literally just moving money.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
But the free market's far less easy to exploit, I feel. Because you do give a shit and you'll tell people no.
Yep.
Based off of where you think their heart is. Government ain't gonna do that.
The government is not.
No.
Nope.
And I think the charities is really the way to go for helping people.
Yeah, and yes, we are an amputee program, but you know, a lot of those people that are cutting checks for organizations, which we have yet to. You know, we have some very gracious donors in our program, but we don't have any corporate sponsorship right now. You know, we are suffering financially, but it's a burden that the board members are willing to bear because we 100% believe in what we're doing, and I'm going to keep doing it until either my wife and I run out of money, or until, you know, some heavy players come in and say, hey, you know what, we're going to help make this truly happen, right? We're going to alleviate some green strain out of your pockets. But a lot of people that are donating to those organizations, they want to see this, right?
What do you mean?
They want to see metal appendages from people that lost them overseas. That's all they want. And it's kind of sad, but it is a reality. You know, it's people like to be able to say, oh yeah, you know, I'm donating money to this, and look at that guy, you know, he's got a Purple Heart. And again, Zach, I don't want to come across like that I have a lack of respect for people that have been injured in combat. I have the utmost respect for people that have been injured overseas in combat. 100% I do. They've earned a lot, 100%. But at the same time, there's people that didn't serve that they only want to be a part of that. They don't necessarily look, you know, like you could have two veterans standing side by side. One of them can be littered, just riddled with TBI and PTSD. And you can have another guy that maybe was in country for 3 days and got blown up and sent home, and he's missing a leg. And they're going to choose the amputee every single time because it's visible.
Or he got a staph infection.
Like, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know,
it's
right?
Anything.
That
absolutely.
People are attracted to, they gravitate to the metal limbs.
They want to feel like they're helping the guy that experienced the most trauma.
Correct.
Right. And I think that that's what makes you uniquely special in this arena is you see both sides of it because you were a veteran and you did have friends and you saw the guys getting hurt, and you're intimate with that community, but that wasn't where you lost your leg.
Yeah.
You lost it in a civilian context.
Correct.
And so you straddle both ends of the fence and you can see both sides, and you're like, no, everyone here is fucking hurting and everyone needs the help. And I see a whole lot of opportunity here and a whole lot of dick over here, right?
Yep.
And so we're going to open it up to everybody. And I think that that's a great thing, and it's a special thing, and it makes yours unique
and
nobody, special in what you're doing.
Nobody comes back to our program. So
yeah,
Dustin's going home this year without a trophy. Dustin can apply.
Yeah.
If Dustin wants to submit an application, and it is the application, it's AMP-location.
Nice.
It is an application. He's free to submit one for next year. He's not getting selected.
Sure.
He's
next
one and
year
done.
It's on him.
And there's another organization, nonprofit here in Texas, south of San Antonio. They put on an incredible veteran first responder hunt program every year. It's called Bucks for the Brave down at Trinity Oaks.
Nice.
It's sponsored by Record Rack, and they've put on a great. I've never been. Yeah. I've submitted people for it, but it's one and done thing. If somebody's selected to go there and they attend, they never go back. It's one and done, and I love it. I absolutely do. I love it, and that's why the A3G initiative picks one amputee a year. Whether you're a veteran or you're not a veteran, it doesn't matter to me. Just 18 years or older and in the lower 48 right now, apply for it, and we are going to make you the priority of our life for almost an entire year.
Wow. And
we are going to introduce you to some incredible opportunities and a team of people that want to help you and want you to be successful, and provide you with some tools and a fresh outlook to move forward in life. That's what we're doing, man.
I love it.
I love it.
Well, send us, drop your social medias or whatever, where people can find you. You also have a podcast, right?
I do have a podcast.
Yeah. So throw us where we can find you, and donate if they want to donate or support however they're able.
Okay. So, my podcast is the Limitless Podcast. It's spelled LIMB-itless podcast.
Clever.
I have a website. It is Limitless Outdoors. That Limitless is again spelled LIMB-itless. So limitlessoutdoors.com. My bio's there. There's stuff on my website. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel as well. The A3G Initiative. So a3ginitiative.org is a domain page under limitlessoutdoors.com. So if you go to a3ginitiative.org, it's going to take you to that page. You'll see information about the program. You're going to see our recipients for the last 3 years. You're going to see information on all the incredible companies that donate and people that donate to the program. There is a donation link on that page. You can donate a penny, donate 100,000 pennies, donate however many pennies you want. You can donate
digitally.
There.
Don't mail fucking pennies.
Yeah, please don't send me a sack of pennies in mail. Save all that money in shipping, all those pennies, and just add it to the donation and do it electronically. It will be far better utilized. A3G Initiative is also on Instagram and Facebook. I am an author. I've been published in a couple of magazines. I do have a blog that is neglected a lot. I do some gear reviews, but something that you and I haven't even talked about. I'm almost finished with my first manuscript. I'm hoping to have my first book published in January, and I've been backcountry hunting since 1996. So this book is about backcountry hunting for the last 30 years. Every chapter is a different trip that I've had, either by myself or with a fellow backcountry hunter.
So a collection of short stories.
It is.
What's it called?
It is called Backcountry: The Pursuit of the pursuit of experience, and that's what it's based on for me. It's not about going out and killing. Mm-hmm. It's the experience.
Yeah,
100%. It's about the experience, and not every chapter in my book is filling a tag. In fact, the majority of the chapters in my book, you don't even know if I filled the tag or not in that chapter, or some of the chapters close and you know for a fact I didn't kill it. I didn't fill a tag or harvest an animal, but I try to capture that experience that I went on at that location. Man, I've had so much fun. I will write 2 more books after this for sure. And it was a bucket list for me. Yeah. I was just like, I want to write a book one day. And I started telling my wife about it, close to retirement. And I've had some people say, hey man, you write pretty good. You should write a book. And it's kind of like, man, am I really going to sit down and do this? And I struggled with it for a while.
It's a lot of work.
And again, Chris Ham, I was on the phone with Chris Ham and he's like, man, you started your book yet? I was like, no, not yet. And I was like, I'm really struggling with it. And he's like, all you got to do is sit down and start punching keys, Aaron.
It's easy to say.
It is
easy to say. What did you struggle with? What part of it was really hard for you? Is it just staring at a blank page getting started, or?
I did not want to start writing until I had a title.
Why? Who told you that? Fuck that. Just start writing.
This thing up here, this soft mass inside my skull told me that. I couldn't. Man. I tried to sit down several times. It's like some people are like, hey, you need to write a motivational book. Hey, you need to write your life story. Hey, you need to write a whole bunch of stories about when you were in the Navy. I'm like, I can't write about a whole bunch of those stories. They're like, you need to write about this. You need to write about that. And I was like, so many people write motivational books. I'm not a celebrity. I've qualified and ran the Boston Marathon 3 times. I've never hit the podium. I'm not Cam Hanes. No one's going to read my motivational book.
That's the number one reason most of us don't do shit, is we tell ourselves that.
Well, I didn't for a long time, and I was hung up on, I didn't know what topic I was going to settle on. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people wanted me to write a motivational book, right? Mm-hmm. Tie in your life story, tie in the leg, everything you've done, write a motivational book. I'm like, everybody writes a motivational book, right? And I'm a nobody. For me, it was the title. It's like, what am I going to write about? If I don't have a title, I don't know what I'm going to write about. It's like, if I don't have a lesson plan, how am I going to teach somebody something? I don't have a lesson plan. And so I was really, really struggled with it. And Zach, my wife, and I were in church back in, was it July or August? And our preacher started the message out by talking about the hyphen on a headstone. And he said, have you ever really thought about that little black mark on a headstone?
I didn't know what you meant.
You have the year that you were born and the year that you died, and your entire life is captured in that little
reduced
black
to a hyphen.
And he was like, every headstone that you look at, that little mark, that person's entire life. And I have a thing for graveyards, not in the creepy way. The history of it. I've been to some pretty famous graveyards around the world. And man, that hit me like a Mack truck that morning. Like, I missed half the sermon that day because it was just on replay in my mind. It's like, holy cow. When I die, everything that I've done, good, bad, or indifferent, in my life is going to be reduced to that hyphen. I'm going to be a memory. And the only memory is either what's documented or what my family and friends know. And it's reduced to that little hyphen. And at first I started calling it like the hyphen theory. And I told Tara, when we left church, I'm like, holy cow, honey. I'm like, this is resounding in me. I want to write about this. My book is going to be about this. I'm going to call it the hyphen theory. That's what it's going to be titled. She looked at me and I started telling her, I'm like, I'm so passionate about the backcountry and the benefits of it and how cleansing it is and everything about it. We talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm like, I want to capture, things that I've experienced and the lessons that I've learned, like my backcountry adventures, and I'm going to call it the hyphen theory. And my wife is like, well, first of all, it's not a theory, Aaron. She goes, so all of that stuff is factual, right? She goes, so that's not a theory. It doesn't make sense. And I was like, but it sounds cool. She goes, oh yeah, you might think it sounds cool. It makes no sense. It's dumb. And I was like, okay, noted. So that's where
wives are great, aren't they?
right?
You idiot.
So that's everything about the book has the hyphen related. So
that's awesome.
The title, backcountry, is in big bold letters, and back and country is separated by a hyphen. Where, it has author Aaron Ritter. It has the year I was born hyphen present. All of my chapters are 1-11, 2-11, all the way through to 11-11. The foreword talks about I don't say hyphen theory, but yeah, the theory behind the book. Yeah. And I reference, I was sitting in church, you got hit by a Mack truck, a hyphen, that little tiny thing has made such a huge impact on me. That's where it fell together. And that Thursday after church, I sat down at the island and just started banging away at the keys. And now I'm 7 chapters deep, hoping to have it published in January. It's been one of the coolest things I've ever done.
I got to start writing again. You're inspiring.
It's exhilarating.
Yeah, it is.
Really is. Obviously, I'm getting all fired up about
it. Dude. Yeah, it's obviously something that you're very passionate about, man. I think it's great what you're doing, and I appreciate you coming in and telling us about it.
I'm so thankful to be here, man. It was awesome meeting you.
Good. You too. It's great to see you again and see what you guys are doing. Please keep me posted on it, and if I can help in any way, let us know.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, y'all go follow Limitless and Aaron Ritter, and donate if you can.
Would be very appreciated. And yeah, be limitless.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.